Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Good. Nice to see all of you. Nice to see you back here. I haven't seen you, Jessica, in a little while. I hope everything's
I
been
had
well with you.
had a family situation. It's really nice to be back.
I see. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope things will make a turn for the better for you, and we're glad to have you back here.
Nice to see you.
So today we're going to pick up a little bit on what Chirag was talking about yesterday, thinking about how do we connect or maybe disconnect with the virtual relationships in our lives. We'll be thinking mostly today about how we connect with clients or potential clients, but I think we should think a little bit more broadly about it as well. So I want to start by asking you to put into the chat whether you think it's more important and valuable for your business for you to concentrate on the relationships that you have that are in-person relationships, people that are geographically close to you, that you spend time with to meet coffee or whatever, versus people that you interact with virtually. So please drop into the chat whether you think virtual or in person or not sure in terms of the value to your business. In person, both are equally important. In person for sure. Got it. Okay, great. So it seems like most of the groups here in person a little better. For all of us, obviously, we don't want to overlook the opportunity to create a positive impact on those who are around us and in front of us. At the same time, not everybody's business is lucky enough to succeed just on that alone. So we do have some kind of a balance between the in-person relationships that we're managing and the more virtual ones. And for anybody who's heavy into social media, obviously there's a huge virtual piece to that relationship. You might say it's 99% virtual, right? The way that they experience you is through virtual interaction almost all the time. And so what we wanted to talk a little bit about today is to take a little thought to how we are interacting with people virtually, because even if you feel that it's most important for you to focus on in-person relationships, certainly there's a place somewhere in the business for you to manage virtual relationships effectively as well. So I'm going to pull up a few slides, share a few things about, maybe we can think about it a little bit. And I want to ask you to question your own practices here. Think about how you are relating with people who are virtual to you. And as we talk through these various points, give some thought to whether the way that you're doing it really is ideal or not. It's very easy for us to hire some service and say, send out a bunch of content every Wednesday and Friday or whatever, and then, we just write a check once a month. But we want to actually bring a lot of careful thought to what's going out, when it's going out, how it's perceived by them, that kind of thing. So we'll talk about a couple of things here, and we'll kind of do a self-assessment, as you will, as you look through all this stuff, and we'll see what comes up for you. Let me pull this up. Oops. There we go. Okay. Building relationships virtually. So a lot of things to consider in here, and we're not obviously going to cover all of them, but there's a few things to keep in mind when you're thinking about how do I participate in this virtual space? And some of this stuff is mindset, some of it's a little bit tactical, but let's see what comes up for you as you listen to this. So how to do it wrong. I've seen lots of clients, not just in real estate, but in earlier parts of my career in other fields as well. People are more and more getting into virtual relationships, especially since the pandemic, and there's a lot of ways to do things wrong. Here are a couple of them. See if you see yourself in any of these things to some degree. Send out information regularly and hope something sticks. Inform people, that is, only inform people. And 3, believe that volume is more important than quality interaction. What I see with far too many agents is that we just throw something out there, we hope it has some value to somebody somewhere, and we hope they'll pick up the phone one of these days. We send out some kind of a newsletter which has got information about some market and maybe overall average, interest rates or, sales in across the USA or perhaps in certain markets. And we hope that something hits somebody there. It's kind of a haphazard approach. And you have to ask yourself, are the people who are receiving this information valuing it? Is it contributing to their life? Remember, the focus here is connect and contribute. And these things that we've been talking about over the last few sessions, including the first 2 success principles we've talked about, matter more in a virtual setting than they even do in a in-person relationship. So everything that you do virtually needs to really be sharp, needs to be right. How do you think about it maybe a little bit differently so that you can do it right versus do it wrong? Well, here's a few things to keep in mind. One, ask yourself, is my interaction with some of my clients one-way interaction that's from me to them, or is it two-way? Is it static or active? So if I'm just sending out a newsletter once a month, that might be fine for some clients, but for other clients, that kind of a static relationship might not be a good fit at all. Third, am I really just focusing on informing people, or am I going beyond informing to also guiding people, supporting people, and surprising and delighting people? Because many of the people that I work with, I find are simply informing. And there's nothing wrong with information. People want information when it's the right information for them. It has value, no doubt about it. But we can do more. And if we've decided that virtual relationships are important to our business, then we need to think about what can we do besides inform. And finally, is it haphazard or is it really planned and purposeful? You may say, well, I send out a newsletter every 2 weeks. It's very planned and purposeful. That's true. But if it's information that isn't really relevant, directly of value to the people who are receiving it, then that part of it's not planned and purposeful, right? The purpose is to impact the person in a positive way. And if it's not happening, then we can't say that the whole process is planned and purposeful. So see if any of those kind of apply to you, at least in some of the things that you may be doing. My suspicion is, yes, probably somewhere in your array of things that you're doing in the way that you're interacting with so many people, there might be a one-way thing in there. There might be a static thing in there. There might be just an informed thing in there, or it might be haphazard. So what can we do instead? Well, here's some things that you can do to make sure you're doing it the right way to open up more possibilities for you. Go beyond just informing to serving. For example, if we're just sending information out, then we're just informing. If we're serving, then we're taking that information or other information a step further, which is tailored to that particular person's needs at that particular time. Chirag was talking yesterday about the little touches, the little details being the real kind of thing that we want to focus on here. And so everybody knows the difference between being served and simply being informed. And so you have to ask yourself, if this is an important person in my life that I want to have a positive impact on, how am I serving that person? And if you don't have a clear answer to that, that's an opportunity for you, right? Because if you line up all the important people that you're trying to target, and I'm not talking about targeting 1,000 people here or 10,000 people who might get your newsletter here. I'm talking about the people that you really have some kind of more of a focus on. Maybe someone who's a prominent person in your town, who's a connector to other people. Or maybe someone who is a big spender. You see that person as a big fish and you'd love to get that person on your line, right? How can you go beyond informing to actually serve? Secondly, make it a two-way street. There's lots of ways that you can make a one-way street a two-way street. A one-way street is just send out the information in your newsletter, or here's like, just listed or just sold. That's a one-way street. A two-way street would be adding something to it. For example, asking somebody to respond to a survey. Hey, we're doing a survey. This is going out to 10,000 of you. What's your biggest fear in the real estate market today? And we'll compile all your results and we'll share them all out with you in 2 weeks. Now you've got a two-way dialogue going and not just one way. So it could be something like a survey. It could be a collection of best practices. So for example, what we often do here at CSC is we'll say, okay, everybody answer this question in the chat and we'll put together a master list. We compile all those things, and then from time to time, we send that stuff back. If you make it a two-way street, then you're giving the people the chance to connect with you in a more direct level, in a more direct way than simply sending information. Follow their SM postings and respond. This one ties to the first one. Imagine if you saw somebody who you served in the past or somebody even tangentially, and they posted about this terrible reno that they're doing of their kitchen and it's turned into a big disaster, as many people, experience. You could say, gosh, that's too bad. You could also respond and say, hey, Susan, you don't know me, but I saw your posting about your disastrous kitchen reno. And if it would be any help for you to talk about how to get out of some kind of a mess like that, let me know. I've done renos for my clients for 15 years and would be happy to share some tips with you if it would be useful. Done. That's a serving. That's going from just like, sending out stuff once in a while to checking their postings, seeing what's happening in their life and responding to what their need is. If you're never responding to somebody's need around you virtually, you're missing a huge opportunity. And of course, it depends on who you're following and how closely you follow them and all that. And I'm not suggesting that you spend 9 hours, on your social media feed. And Chirag and I certainly are against that. But when you do see something that you could respond to, are you? If you are, you're making an impact that that person may never forget. If that person, for example, renovating that kitchen is being a big mess and it costs 3 times as much as she expected, and it's taken 3 months longer than she expected, and the house is a mess and blah, blah, blah. The best thing in the world for her to have would be this angel who comes down from heaven and says, let me tell you how to get out of this mess. And even if she doesn't end up buying from you today, she'll never forget what you did for her. Finally, C's create opportunities to connect, and C's create opportunities to connect one-on-one. Our friends down in Miami and South Florida, they spend a lot of time connecting with people in New York, in Boston, in Washington. They come up our way regularly, and they'll spend time talking with agents up here, talking with potential clients up here, talking with friends and other people up here. They're finding a way to make that virtual into an actual in-person relationship. And you should be doing the same. You may not have such a large feeder market as Florida does in New York or Boston or Washington or something like that. But think about who you could transform the relationship from virtual into in-person. And it could be as simple as, hey, would you like some coffee sometime? You've got somebody on your list. You've been sending out the newsletter to them every 2 weeks for the last 3 years. They haven't done anything, but if you asked them for a cup of coffee, they might say yes. You never know. They may have had something that just happened to them last week, and now they're thinking of selling or whatever. Maybe they got a new job, posting or something. You never know when you catch them. So you want to seize opportunities to connect, either virtually, maybe on the phone or something like that, or connect one-on-one. These are all things that you can do to help you convert the level of interaction and connection that they're experiencing to a higher level. Now, what happens when you start doing this? Well, you may see a payoff right away, you may not. But if you're doing it right, certain things start happening. And here's what some of those things are. First, obviously, people start responding more to your postings and mailings. People will start reaching out to you more. If you're asking them for information or turning it into a two-way dialogue, people are going to start responding to that, certainly. Secondly, this is a really big one. Somebody asks you for something beyond your core expertise. How often does this happen to you? Somebody calls up and they say, gosh, Jessica, I know you're a real estate agent. You're not like a gardener or anything, but I've been trying to find some plants for my garden, and all the garden centers around here just sell the same stuff as Walmart, and I'm looking for something unusual. Is there any place that you know within 50 miles of here that might be, a cool nursery? Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. My brother's this crazy gardener, and he always goes to Brantford to Jones Nursery, right? And so people start asking you for something beyond your core expertise, which means they already trust you. They trust you so much that they're willing to ask you something that they have no idea whether you can help them with or not. That's a huge flag that you're creating a positive impact on them. Third, people share something they don't have to share. Imagine somebody that you don't know too well, and they come out one day and they tell you on the phone, or you bump into them in the supermarket or something, and they share something that you might not have expected them to share. Like, we're having a really tough time in the family right now. My mother's got Alzheimer's, and we can't figure out where she's going to live, and I don't have enough room for her, and my sister doesn't have any money. And to hear something like that is evidence to you that they're willing to interact with you in a more deep and more connected way. It's a real sign that there's something there for them in you. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother to share it. And finally, you get calls from strangers. If you're regularly getting calls from strangers, something about what you're doing is going out into the universe and flowing more than one degree of separation away. So if these things aren't happening for you, that's evidence that you have some more opportunity here, that you could do things a little bit differently, because these things should be happening with some regularity to everybody. So how do you get started, or how can you think about doing something like this? Well, 3 easy steps for this week if you want to do this. 1, make a list of the people, the individual people and groups that are especially important to you, and write them down on a piece of paper in black and white and look at them and say, are these the people that I especially want to touch? Separate them from all the other millions that you want to have some kind of lower level of interaction with, and you know, that you may cast a line to as a fisherman, but you don't expect to catch them. Make that list first. Second, ask yourself, for each of those people or groups, is my current interaction with these people planned and purposeful? Is it two-way, or is it more like one way? Is it more haphazard? Is it really, when I look at it honestly and be honest with myself, am I creating an experience for this person that is relevant and valuable to their life? And if so, great. If not, you can make an adjustment there. And third and fourth question are also important. When do I intend to talk with this person next? When can I meet this person in person? This is about moving it up the scale a little bit. If you don't have any answer to those questions, again, it's an opportunity for you. If you're telling me that these are the people that are on your list and you have no plan for when you're going to talk with them next, or maybe get together for a cup of coffee, that's an opportunity. Doesn't cost much time, doesn't cost much money. But if you're never doing it because you're caught up in the day-to-day stuff, you're missing out on an opportunity to develop those very relationships that you are saying are important to your success. And finally, then, based on your answer to those questions, make one adjustment in your strategy for one person or another. Set up one coffee, or make one phone call, or send one video call, or something like that. Some kind of a way of connecting with them that's a little bit different from what you're doing. Because if you keep doing what you've always been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've always gotten. And if you want to create different results for yourself, you have to make an adjustment. So I hope that this is a challenge to all of you to take a fresh look at what you're doing and find those small spaces where there may be a lost opportunity that you haven't yet capitalized on. So let's talk about this a little bit. Okay, first question. I'd like to ask a couple of folks to come off mute. Where do you see yourself in anything that I've said here? Missing something, overlooking something, seeing it as static rather than active, seeing it as one way rather than two way. I know Jessica put something in the chat before about haphazard. Jessica, can you start us off by just telling us why does the word haphazard come up for you in your approach?
Because I have been historically timid about sending out regular emails, worried that, you know, some people will get too many. Perhaps I haven't been as intentional and mindful, but I really like your direction here to actually write this list of perhaps besties. Maybe it's top 20, top 10, top 20,
Yeah.
to really focus on and be mindful of the right communication throughout the year. Have not focused there yet.
Got it. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, top 10, top 20, maximum top 30. These are the people that you are already clear are really important to you over the longer term, and that you're not missing an opportunity to do it right with them. You can miss an opportunity to do it right with somebody that you don't even know, that you got some name at some party somewhere when you were half drunk or whatever anyway. But if it's somebody that's on your important list, then you want to make sure that you're creating a curated experience for them that has value to them. Let's hear from someone else, please. Where did you see a glimpse of yourself or have a little insight that some of this relates to yourself and your approach? Nobody. So either I've misjudged everybody. All right, thank you, Keith. Raise your hand, please. Come off mute and join us here.
Sure. All of us. Now it's unfair because I've been coaching one-on-one with you for a while now. So I've seen a progression through the connecting with people that through the plan that we've set up. I've seen a huge progression. But the slide that showed when people are reaching out to you for things that you might have a connection for, but it's not your expertise, like that happens to me all the time. That happens to me within the brokerage. It happens to me with it's happened to me for a while. In fact, it was identified to me by other people because I didn't even realize it. Heidi, actually, on our team, said people come to you for this, 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 and this, and this. I'm like, we're just collaborative. It's part of who we are. So that was, that was really, it helps me see we're on the right path. We're doing the right thing.
So chances are there are some people that are reaching out to you for something from time to time other than real estate stuff. But the questions you can ask yourself there are, what are they asking for? Because they see me as a potential resource for that. right? And who's asking, which means I'm touching that person. And most importantly, who's not asking? Because that person hasn't yet reached this point where they feel like it's worth their while to ask you about something like this. And if any of those people are on your list, like if you make your list of top 10 or top 20 and 15 of them have never asked you for anything beyond your expertise, that's a huge opportunity. If you can build that relationship a little bit better, then you not only have 5 people asking you for something beyond your expertise, but you have 15 more. That's really powerful evidence that you've touched everybody. Let's hear from one more person. What stood out for you? What was something that was a little awareness for you in this morning? All right, let me call on somebody. Leslie Brenowitz, please, can you come off mute and tell us what's going through your mind as we talk through all this morning?
Well, I know I have an issue with consistency.
Got
You
it.
know, so I'm like, I'll think one thing's a good idea and I'll do it for a while, but then there'll be a new idea. And so I'll start doing that. And this is a larger issue than within my real estate career. I'll acknowledge that too, but we don't have enough time today to resolve that issue.
Sure. Well, that's clearly a big challenge for most of the agents that I've worked with. You know, you have to think that when you're going to engage in a routine, you have to not only choose a routine thoughtfully, but you have to execute the routine appropriately enough for a long enough time for the benefit to kick in. So if you're trying to get in shape or you're trying to lose weight or whatever, you're never going to get there if you only go to the gym for a week or 10 days or 3 days or whatever it is, right? And so one of the things I often work on with my clients is I think of not only what is it that we're going to try, but we put an assessment target date in there. So if you have a particular strategy that you want to put into play, you should ask yourself, what's the shelf life? We call it shelf life. What's the shelf life of this particular approach? And so maybe it's 30 days, maybe it's 60 days, maybe it's 90 days, and you make a mental note or you put it into your written plan. After 90 days, we're going to assess the effectiveness of this so far, and then decide whether we need to make an adjustment or not. And so putting that date out there and choosing not a haphazard date, but a real date, like, okay, if I put this into practice, I should start seeing some kind of feedback about whether this is working or not within, let's say, 90 days. Then you put that right on your calendar and you say, we're going to let this run and we're going to do it impeccably, flawlessly for 90 days. And at the end of the 90 days, we'll see what we're getting. We'll have a meeting. We've got it on the calendar for an hour. We'll talk it through. We'll think it through. We'll decide whether we need to make an adjustment or not. All right, thank you.
There's no we, so I'll have to be talking to myself, but
no worries. That's fine. Talk with yourself, right? It's even easier that way. So, you know, if you think about, you know, the process is always tied to a goal, right? It's always the what is the goal first, right? You need to be clear about what your intended outcome or your intended impact is. Then you think about the how part. How do I get there? Right? So if you say, I want to lose 10 pounds, okay, that's the goal. I want to lose 10 pounds. How do I get there? Well, I'm going to walk for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And I'm going to do a Pilates class 2 days a week. Great. That's the strategy. Walking and Pilates. Fine. You've got the what, you have the how. The question then is, you know, when you want to lose 10 pounds, by. Are you talking about 2 months? Are you talking about 6 months? Are you talking about a year? It doesn't really matter, but you need to be clear in your mind what the what is first, and then the how. And then given that how, then it becomes reasonable for you to have that check-in date at a certain moment in time. And it's up to you. Yes, you have to follow through. And unfortunately, if you end up doing it in a inconsistent way, or you end up giving up too soon, yeah, you'll never see whether the process would have worked or not. And of course, like so many things in life, I've used the examples before, learning a language or playing an instrument or something. You can't get there unless you actually stick with it for a long period of time. And so much of what we do in real estate is tied to that. Not everything, but certainly a lot of it. And when I see many agents who say, I want to get to this level, but I only got to this level, I say, well, you know, what are your goals? What are your practices? They often have goals, and we could have a separate conversation about goal setting and all that. But the practices is where we really break down. And so what we're talking about this morning is an opportunity that you have to think about some of your practices and how they're actually impacting the people around you. And there is a place, obviously, for postcards and newsletters and those kinds of things. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, if you really want to maximize the value of your virtual relationships, you have to go further, especially if you identify some key demographic groups or key individuals. I see someone saying, can you put the slide back up? I'd be happy to. Which slide are you talking about?
Hey, David.
Hi, who's that?
It's Darlene.
Hi, Darlene.
Hi. So I'm sorry, I'm in the car. That's why I'm like, I missed it. And there was one, let me see if this is it. I'm stopped right now. Yeah, I think that, yeah. I can go back in and look too after I get back. I
What
was just like
what was
everybody
the
else is kind of
gist of your
talking
thought?
about. Yeah, I just have the same problem, as far as like I do stuff and then I stop and I move on to the next thing. And I think with Compass, especially because there's so many things we can do and so many opportunities that I get a little overwhelmed on what I should be doing some days.
Well, this is a huge problem, folks. We get enticed by the latest and greatest, right? It's like the new shiny object. And Compass is often pushing shiny objects. So it's no surprise that you guys are experiencing that. But you have to have the mental fortitude to say, this is my business, and I think that this is going to work for my business. So I'm going to stick with this for the appropriate amount of time. And, Compass wants you to succeed, but they're sending something out to 20,000 agents or more. And what may work overall on average for 20,000 agents may not work at all for you as an individual company. And so you have to have the mental fortitude to say, I think this is the right approach for me, and I'm going to stick with it until I can see whether I'm right or not. If you give up too soon, obviously, or you do it inconsistently, you're always going to fail no matter what you try. And so, part of the work, I've worked with a lot of clients, is just being there week to week to week to stay on track is a big success factor for many people. And whether you have a coach or not, doesn't matter. I'm not selling coaching here. I'm saying you need to have a practice that you're willing to kind of check in with yourself and stay on track with what you've already decided. Okay, so let me ask one more question. We have a couple minutes left. Who has a kind of an inspiration or a thought to make a small adjustment based on what we've talked about today? I'd like to hear from you. Jessica, okay, we've already had John, but let's hear you one more time. What's your adjustment that you want to make here?
I'm going to, I already have from Core or 10 by 10 a while back, some like top 10 tags, but I haven't looked at that stuff. So I'm really going to go into my CRM and get that cleaned up and write out my list and focus on touch points for those people through the end of the year.
Great. Would you like some help with accountability for that?
Yes.
Great. When can I expect you to send me that list?
Today is Wednesday. Actually, I can do it by the end of today.
Great. I'm looking forward to receiving it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. And Michael Faber, is it? Fort Lauderdale?
Hold on, let me just unmute. Hey, good morning. I'm looking on the other side. It's just, I think there's a twofold issue. The number one, as already mentioned, Compass offers a ton of software and techniques, and the thing is like, what's good for you, right? What works for you personally,
right?
Like where they're saying, oh, no mailings. For me, mailings work very well.
Yep.
Social media doesn't, because my clientele is on the older side, right? They're not on their Facebook, if so. But that's number one. And number two is going back where what I used to do is the core 10, right? It's like, so the 10 to 30 top customers who are the engine of your business, more or less, who refer you and so forth, to just get back. And due to COVID, which is still around, unfortunately, a lot of things went to the sideways, like, the typical chamber networking events and all this stuff, which is coming back over the last 6 to 12 months down here in Fort Lauderdale. But it's still 2 years of nothing, right? So how do people move on those 2 years? How do you reconnect and close the gap? I think that's the biggest issue agents may have, who were impacted negatively due to COVID. And nobody really talks about it, but I see it left and right where customers still suffer literally from side effects, or mentally speaking. I'm not talking about physically, but mentally speaking. And we as agents are urged to go out into the world and, you know, show them how fabulous everything is, and be the cheerleaders of your community on various levels. And I do believe that the impact there is still present, and it'll take a little bit. You know, the whole philosophy of getting agents back into the office. Compass tries so hard to do that. And I see it on myself, right? I have my cozy little home office here in one of my bedrooms, and I'm like, oh, that's great, you know. So I see myself where I'm like, well, I got to get back to the office, and then I go back to the office, and there's no one there. You know, I mean, it's like,
yeah. Well, underlining all of this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, that was a lot.
Underlining all of the discussion today is the assumption that you understand what the world is looking like from your client's perspective right now.
Right.
Some people haven't come all the way back from COVID. Totally get it.
No.
Lots of the institutions and practices and things that we had in the past, if you've been around a long time, you're like just waiting for it to reset back to that. But maybe it might not happen in the same way. But it's important for you to recognize, what does life look like for my customer right now? And therefore, how can I respond to that? Right? If what they're experiencing is, you know, they don't know where to turn for this, or they don't know where to turn for that, or they're stuck in their home and they're lonely, how much more they would enjoy a video message from you, or a phone call, or an invitation for a cup of coffee, or something like that. You know, all of this stuff is relevant to the situation in which your clients are experiencing their life. And so if you're going to make sure that you're touching the people that are important for you to touch, you need to understand what that's like for them and have some kind of a response to it. Right. Okay, everyone. Thanks for being with us this morning. Look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday. Have a great week. And by the way, I'll just say, you know, regarding Michael's message just a minute ago there. If you haven't seen Chirag's sessions this week and last week, he was talking about reaching out to people who you haven't reached out to in a while. He had a script and stuff that we had, I think it was last week, Monday and Tuesday, in the videos. And so there's stuff there that makes it easy for you to reconnect with people that you haven't in a while. And so as one step or a first step, absolutely, you can follow through with that stuff. Okay, everybody, have a great day and a great week. Love you all. See you soon. Bye.